there, welcome to Inquiring Minds. My name is Doug and I'm back with another Doug's Workshop Pen Resurrection Sunday video. Today I have a double header for you. I have this Sheaffer Imperial Triumph. I think it's a version 2, we're not sure. And this, what is labeled as a Sheaffer Imperial II with a fine point, but I don't think it is. I think it's more like a 4 because it has this Imperial nib. The Sheaffer Imperial Triumph has a Triumph style nib and is a touchdown. I'm going to try to disassemble and restore both of these Sheaffer pens. They're from roughly the same period. This one is younger, I think, so this is from the 1960s. This might be from the 1950s through the early 1960s. And this is one you saw in my Son of Bago Pens video that I did last week, donated by Janice. Thank you, Janice. And I didn't know whether I would be able to get it into working order or not, but I'm cautiously optimistic. So we're going to disassemble this pen, see what needs to be done. We're going to disassemble this pen, which I drove across town to get, thinking that it might be an Imperial gold nib, but it wasn't. This is an aerometric filler style pen. We're going to take this to pieces as well. I tried to identify these pens using this book, Pen Repair 4th edition by Jim Marshall and Lawrence Ofield, which was donated to my channel by Bill. Thank you very much, Bill. I'm getting a lot of really good use out of this book. And there's a page right here for the Sheaffer Imperial range from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. And down here, there is a chart. Let's get closer. There is a chart that shows the various pens. It says Imperial models from 1960s to late 70s. And this pen certainly looks like the 2 version right here. It's got the Triumph nib, it's a touchdown, it has the long clip with Sheaffers on it, and this particular bulge right here. I think this is a Sheaffer Imperial Triumph touchdown filler. Sheaffer used the word Imperial on all kinds of different pens from all kinds of different eras. In fact, the book says Sheaffer used the word Imperial with abandon in their product names. Initially, the Imperial was used for the square-shaped touchdowns with various nibs and caps. However, it was obviously too good a name to waste, so there are Imperial Sovereigns, Silver Imperials, Imperial 700s, 800s, as well as the 1950s 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and Imperial Silver and Imperial Triumph. So I think I've identified this one as number 2, Imperial 2. And when we look at this on the picture chart, this lines up with this pen here, the VI6. It has the Sheaffer Imperial style diamond shaped nib, and it has the short clip with no Sheaffers on it but a white dot. It says, note the white dot is only for the expensive models. This is a steel nib. This isn't a gold nib. I believe it would say it would have gold indications on it. And this Triumph, I believe, is a steel nib as well. There were silver versions of this, but this doesn't look like silver to me. So that's as far as my research takes me so far. So let's take a look at each one of these pens individually and see what they need. I'm going to call this the Imperial II, and I'm going to call this the Imperial VI. Let's start with the Imperial II. So I have to admit that I started working on this pen before I hit record on the recorder. I wanted to see whether I could actually get it apart and whether the touchdown would be functional enough to warrant servicing. So I took the barrel off and pulled the sack protector off and pulled out the old sack. And the old sack was very, very desiccated, and I'm not surprised it didn't hold any ink or water. And then I removed the blind cap by putting my screwdriver, slot screwdriver, into it and unscrewing the blind cap. And there's that screw, and then dropping the touchdown filler tube out, and then I could get a look at that seal. The seal was very old. It was a white one. The originals were white. I took a Sheaffer touchdown replacement O-ring and slipped it into that groove right there with plenty of grease. Then we drop our screw back into the touchdown filler, put the sleeve on first, and then screw the screw back into the blind cap. I'm getting some suction on that, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough. So I might have to do what I did before and put a larger O-ring from my Pen BBS parts bag in that touchdown filler. But for now, I'm just going to leave that like that. And it took me quite a bit of heat with my heat gun to heat up that section because there's adhesive on these threads in here. But it came loose. I was able to unscrew that threaded section and slide it off. Then there is an ebonite feed, which you have to be very careful with. All of this was soaked, by the way, in pen flush for quite a while before I even attempted doing any of this. There's our ebonite feed tube. It's not really a tube, it's like a half circle with an ink slot on it. Then there is this small clutch ring that comes out, and there's a white seal in there. My pen repair manual says this rarely needs replacing, and that looks like it's in really, really good shape. But what you can do now is you can push out the ebonite feed from this end. It's going to be a little bit stubborn. I'm just going to take some matting material and we're going to unscrew this nib from the section. There's our nib, and we can push the feed through. There we go. And there's our feed, and there's our little O-ring. I want to keep those together because I don't want to lose that O-ring. And that whole assembly looks like that inside that section. So there are the parts of the Imperial II Triumph touchdown filler. The nib is in really good shape. I dip tested it and it's very smooth and doesn't need any adjustments at all. Just will polish it. You notice it says it's made in Australia. All these parts go in the ultrasonic bath of pen flush, which is 9 parts distilled water and 1 part ammonia. So I'm going to get out my little parts tray here so we don't lose any of these little bits. So in order to make this pen function, I have to get that touchdown to actually create a suction. So I might start with trying to replace that O-ring and then put the whole thing back together again and resack the pen. So I put a bead of crazy glue, CA glue, which is cyanoacrylate glue, on the barrel where that crack was. Again, a caution, you're not supposed to use CA glue on these plastic barrels as it eats away the plastic and will tend to leach ink through them anyway. But this is not an ink seal, this is an air seal. And so what I wanted to see was whether that crack was indeed causing the loss of pressure. The first thing I did was I inserted this pen into that barrel to spread that crack out, and then I put a bead of crazy glue on it, and then I wrapped this elastic band around the barrel to hold it overnight. And now in the morning I'm checking to see whether there's any suction. I had no suction at all before, and now I do. And so now it's working. So I'll go ahead with the rest of the restoration, and we'll deal with that when I clean up the barrel with some micromesh. So now it's time to see whether that vacuum that I think I have in this barrel, now that I've sealed that crack, is strong enough to suck up ink when I resack the pen. So let's put this nib section back together again. Put that seal on top of the feed. I'm going to put that ebonite filler tube through the back end of that section piece. Put the seal back on the feed and then slip the filler tube through to the front so it's all one piece. There we go. And that filler tube sticks out the end just like that. Put the clutch ring back on. Only goes on one way, so that should close down perfectly so that the nib can go back on. And again, it's a single thread. So now I can adjust that feed around carefully with the filler tube so that it sits flush and correctly on that nib. There we go. I'm just going to hold on to the feed while I screw this tight so it doesn't rotate. There. Oh, I might have to adjust it a little bit more. Just going to make sure that the orientation of that filler tube, call it a tube, it's not a tube, it's a channel, is up so that the channel faces the feed. There. It's a bit of a fiddly adjustment. Hold it tight. There we go. And that should be good. Now I can go ahead and resack this into the sack protector. Got to figure out, I'm going to actually put some talc in here to get that filler tube deep into this sack protector. So I'm going to talc up a cotton swab, just coat the inside of this sack protector with talc, the sack itself. There, get it as deep as we can. And when that sack protector is on that nipple, the sack should come to there, so that that lip crimps on that lip there, go into that channel with a click. And once I've got it done, I'm going to crimp that down a little bit more with a pair of pliers, just make sure it's tight. And this is all clean and free of any debris. So let's measure it down in there tight. That goes to there. So I'm going to cut it just below that little crimp mark. So that's about 1/8 of an inch or so below the top, which I pinched with my fingernail. So I'm going to just clip it right there where it's the top, just like that. And then I'm going to bring it out just about that much and trim that off. There we go. And that should fit right around that stem. We'll do a dry fit first. Yep. So let's try it for real this time. My shellac brush. We're just going to paint that stem. Not get any on the inside at all. Yeah, if I'm careful enough, I shouldn't need a sack spreader. There we go. And we just put a little bead around there, all the way around to seal that seam. And we'll let that dry overnight before I put the sack protector back on. And then we can test to see whether we draw up any ink with that fixed barrel. If it doesn't suck up any ink, I'm afraid it's a goner. Okay, our shellac is dry, so let's give this a try. He's a poet, he doesn't know it. So I'm just going to push this on here, make sure it clicks. There we go. I added a little bit of extra talc just to make it slide and not kink in there. And I'm just going to leave it like it is. If this works, I'll eventually seal that down or crimp it down. So I'm going to do another thing here too, just to make sure that I get a good seal with no air leaks. And add a little bit of silicone grease to those threads. Yeah, it's pulling the section out. I wondered. Is that CA glue has gotten into that thread. So I'm going to scrape that a bit with a dental tool here and come back. And I think we're borked here. I'm going to try to fill it, but when I put the section back on, it made that split go wider. But we'll see if we get any bubbles at all. .08 milliliters of ink. So basically nothing. You can see how deformed that's just come out of there a little bit. So that barrel is, oh, it's another crack. It's not the crack that I fixed. It's another one right there. Very, very brittle. Well, that's too bad. Since we got .08 milliliters of ink, let's see how far we can write with it. So this is a circa, oh, that's a nice nib. 1960, question mark, Sheaffer. Wait a second, I got my eyes on. Oh, that's better. It's a Sheaffer Imperial Triumph touchdown. And I'm going to call it the number 2. Very smooth. It's skipping a bit, but it might just need to flow a little bit more. Well, this is a very nice pen. Too bad it's broken. Yeah, that's very nice. I wonder if you can convert this into another type of pen. I don't know. That's 2 cracks now I've got in that barrel. Old brittle plastic. Unfortunate, because that's a very nice pen. And it doesn't even slip cap anymore because of that lip on there. Oh, wrong cap. That's why. Well, it still doesn't go. I might have that clutch in upside down, I'm not sure. Anywho, that was an attempt. Anyway, you can't be successful all the time. So now let's look at the Imperial VI. The Imperial VI is a more modern Sheaffer. I don't know exactly what the date of this is, but it has this really nice short but spring-loaded clip with the white dot, meaning the lifetime warranty. Pull cap, unscrew the barrel, aerometric filler comes right out, and this pen will take standard Sheaffer cartridges. Even modern Sheaffer standard cartridges will go into this pen, and that vinyl sack in there is in really, really good shape. They're almost indestructible. The cap is a brushed stainless steel, and so it doesn't show a lot of the micro scratches. Just a little bit of metal polish on that should work. But here I want to show you how to take apart the section of one of these inlaid Imperial nibs. This tail part of the section has screw threads that go into the plastic part of the section, and there's adhesive on those, and you have to use heat to release it. So I used actually quite a bit of heat over and over and over again like this. I'm just going to heat it now because even though I've had it off, it tends to seize up and heat it up a little bit. But I heated it a lot, gradually, over a lot of time, and put my mat on both sides. There it goes. And it's still tightening up on me because there's still a little bit of that adhesive on those threads that I can't really get out. There's a small washer, very thin metal washer right there that does not come out of there. So that piece comes off. You might be able to see some of the blue adhesive that's still in there, and I can't get it out. So that's what's binding up. And then this part of the section comes off of the breather tube, and we have a breather tube which is very similar to the one that was in the Imperial Triumph, only it doesn't come out of this collector feed. And there's our small O-ring that doesn't need replacing. So we're going to keep all those parts together. Here's the clutch for the cap, and it comes right off of there. And then you have the nose cone section with the inlaid nib. So all these parts are going to go into the ultrasonic bath to be cleaned up. This requires no fixing, no restoration, because this should suck up ink just fine, and it should take cartridges just fine. There are some micro abrasions on the plastic barrel, which is all one piece, and I'll polish that up. Same thing with nose cone. I dip tested the nib, and it writes a really, really nice medium line, very, very smooth. Then we're going to put the whole thing back together again, and I'm not going to cement that tailpiece down into the section because it goes pretty tight and doesn't really like to move without a little bit of heat. So we'll get another little tray here and put our parts into it and put everything into the bath. So let's put our parts back together again of this Sheaffer Imperial VI. There's our seal, don't want to lose that, and our clutch ring and our point. So we'll put the seal on the feed and then sandwich that back together again. And we're going to put this feed back in the pen so it sits square. It actually goes in there very nicely and just sits down. Then we add our clutch ring in the right direction. It clutches this way, I believe. Should only go in one way. There we go. Here is the tail end of the section, and that is still rather tight. I'm going to add some silicone grease to that just to make it go a little faster. You can see some of that cement that they use, that blue stuff there. I couldn't get it out. It took a bit of heat. So I might just heat this up as I put it in. That's what she said. There, nice and tight, the way we like it. And then I can put the aerometric filler, which is in really, really good shape, back in that section and make sure the clutch is correctly on. Whichever way I put it in, it's wrong. It's like a USB connection. Try it the first time, it's wrong. Try it the second time, it's wrong. Try it the first time, it's wrong. Flip it over, it's wrong. Try it the first way, and it goes in. Now this is going to need heat again. That's better. Okay. That's why it wouldn't close properly. Weigh the pen. Press tear. Get out our Watermans. And press 2, 3, 4 times, whatever it takes. I hear bubbles. This should work. Now we weigh it again. And we get 1.09 milliliters of ink. And that is what I'd call a success. The paper out again. These pens post beautifully. And we're going to try this one. This is a Sheaffer. Well, this is even nicer than the other one. Imperial VI. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I don't care what the label says. I'll go by the book. And that's nicely smooth with some nice feedback. Okay, yeah, that's very pleasant. Oh, I'm getting some nice thick lines. This is probably a medium. I haven't measured the lines yet, but they look like they're 0.05 to 0.06 millimeters in thickness. This actually says on the sticker, fine. So it might actually be a fine, but that's lovely. So 1 out of 2 ain't bad. Just a passing grade. Now people say you should keep these stickers on to identify the pens. Like on Mont Blancs, people like to keep the stickers on. And this one is certainly vintage. I think it's wrong, but it's certainly vintage. But I'd like to polish up that cap. So I'm going to remove the sticker and see whether I can reapply it with a little bit of glue later. I don't know what kind of glue, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So I'm going to lift it with some naphtha. This is Reinstalling lighter fluid. It is almost pure naphtha. You can buy the more expensive stuff called Goubigon or Gougon for like 10 times the price, but this works beautifully and it evaporates. No smoking around this, but just drop a little bit of naphtha on there and rub gently with a cotton swab. This is not harmful to plastics, celluloid, anything like that, but what it does is it gets rid of all that sticky stuff, and it should just allow me to peel that label off. Been on there a long time, so it might take a little bit. Yeah, it's starting to lift. And it's not one of those paper labels, it's one of those plastic labels. But I'm going to stick it to something plastic in the meantime, so I think I'll stick it to Bill's block. Pardon me, Bill. And it's taken almost all of that gold lettering off, so it may be a moot point. And then I'm going to go at this cap with some metal polish and polish that up with some polishing compound. And then I'm going to go at that section. This is metal polish from Autosol. Any typical metal polish that you have from your hardware store will work. And I just rub it on, and you see that it comes up with dirt off of that metal surface instantly. And rub with a microfiber cloth, and there we go. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to see whether some polishing compound might take out that little abrasion there. If I can use the finest grit possible first, that'd be great. Here's my Anderson Pens Microgloss number 5. This is a polishing compound. Put a little bit on there. I'm just going to put the barrel back on and use some of this polish on the section as well. Looking pretty good now. There we go. Okay, so a little bit of flushing with some pen flush and then clear water. We're running through that section, and then I ran a lot of ink through it, and now it seems to be flowing very nicely. This nib is very smooth, very nice nib. Line variation, not much. It's a steel nib, not a lot of line variation. Even the gold nibs like this don't have a lot of line variation to them, but I'm going to call that a success. I need a success. At least one. I can't even spell success. There we go. Just one success in my video, and I'll be happy. So what do I think about this pen resurrection, or not resurrection, as the case may be? This pen didn't owe anybody anything, I don't think. Janice gave it to me as part of a pen bag that she had for a long, long time, and I think she just paid a few dollars for it anyway. The distressing thing about this lack of success on this pen is that that nib is so nice. So I'll keep this pen in my arsenal of parts, and maybe that nib will find a new home. And this pen has found a new home as well, because I think Win really likes those diamond-shaped inlaid nibs. And this pen writes beautifully and smoothly. So that's a success. Actually, I'm going to call them both a success. This is a success because it's writing beautifully and it looks beautiful. This one is a success because it sucks in excess. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. And thank you for joining me for another Pen Resurrection Sunday. And that just leaves it for me to say thank you for watching. And that's all she wrote.
I made this.